Well, honestly speaking, the French are not more creative. I would be able to mention a few countries that I think are naturally more creative. That's totally true. But still, the French have their French touch. And this works very well. So yeah, I think it has to do with a bit of a particularity, something little. Yeah, what is the French touch? I would say it's very expressive at first. I would say it's a style, definitely. And you have to believe in that style. You know, you have to stick to it. And there's something here. Well, it can be anything. It can be a new way of telling a story. It can be a new graphic style, something that you've never seen before. It could be a new technique, a new way of doing things. Yeah, something little, a bit of flair, you know, something, a little bit of flair. I think that's how we start by describing it. Well, the question here is how to get there. How do you get there? And, well, honestly, I can tell you how the French get there. Those that are French have been through the process, I would say. I don't guarantee that I have a French touch, but for some reason I understand what it means. So, answering that question, how do you get there? I'll answer by explaining how an artist is raised in France. What's the process of evolution? What are those key moments that definitely shapes you into a creative person, but a little bit more, with this particularity that makes you a little bit different, just enough so that your work will stand out. Well, in France, we're known to have some very good schools. One of them is Goblin. But there are more, there are the others. Yes. Yeah, Goblin first. There are others. There's also Super Fulcon, MK, which I did. And, well, one thing for sure that everybody is agreeing on is coming out of these schools, the students are very, very good. They're very well done, and they're extremely good. That's true. Okay, so let's begin this way. I would say that at first every one of these schools teach you the art of animation, but they all have a few major topics that definitely are the rules that as a young creative person you need to know and walk on. It has to become your base. Starting with what I think is the most important. This is a sentence by Steve Eckner, who's a major player in the animation industry. He's been in the industry since 30 years. Jacques Miller worked with the man before this guy worked for Disney for so long. He's an animator. Now he's working for DreamWorks since about 12, 15 years. And he always says this: you must be a student of your own discipline. Okay, what does that mean? It's very simple. You have to learn all the time about what you're doing. You have to learn. And how do you learn? When you look at things. That's something that all these schools in France are doing very, very good. They encourage you every day, all the time, to watch and learn. Just watch. It is absolutely common for a French student in one of these schools to be given the assignment tonight to look at a movie. That's what you're going to do. For an hour and a half, you're going to watch. Photography, dance, paint, exposition, animation, movies, anything. Good, bad, old, young, anything. Okay, it's not the point. You have to fill up your head with as much content as possible. Because you learn. So open your eyes. See what's been done. Learn from others. Failures of success or whatever. Learn. Just watch. Because there's so much out there that you know. And this is key. Look at this. This is a short animation made by a studio in Holland, correct? The name of the studio is Platties Image. It's extremely graphic. It's very dynamic. It's a very interesting style of animation. I'm sure you don't see that very often. It's worth watching. You have to be a student of your own discipline. This is going to help you to build up your identity, your artist identity. You're going to shape your eye. You're going to learn how to detect those details. Pay attention to this. It's so important. That's the first point. Now there's another point that I think is essential, and all these schools are covering this point very much. Is the attention to detail. It's how much you have to pay attention to the small things. The small things. And anything, you know, the details in the color, the details in the shape, the details in the line. Anything, the detail. Well, of course, there's a side effect to this. The students are so much shaped into how much you have to pay attention to detail. Eventually, they're paying too much attention to detail, to the point that they're never happy. They're always unsatisfied. It's always never good enough. They can always find a little bit something somewhere that's just not here, and they want to improve it. Okay, so that's the side effect of this dream case. But well, it's attention to detail. And the detail is every time. Whatever is your style, whatever is the canvas, whatever is the way you want to express your creativity, detail is key. Now, a completely different thing that schools are doing a lot, and I think that, I think this is very, very good. It's how much the tools do not matter. Remember that. How much the tools do not matter. Whether you choose to express your creativity with a camera, or with a pencil, or by moving your body, doesn't matter. Your creativity is key, the tool is not. And these schools, I guarantee you, have been there. They insist so much on telling you the tool will never matter. Do not constrain your creativity. Do not constrain your creativity because you already know what kind of tool you're going to use. Don't do that. It's not because you're going to use a hammer that right away you get oh, I should not have this idea because I know I won't be able to do it with a hammer. That's a mistake. Do not constrain your creativity by the tool or the technique, whatever you want to call it. It is so important. And these schools emphasize this a lot, and they're right. And I will never emphasize it enough. And last but not least, and I think this is also something very good in the French industry, sorry, in the French schools, it's insisting on the fact that you have to listen to yourself a little. You know, you have to be a sensitive person. You have to be a vocal person. You have to express yourself about how you feel. If you want to be a good creative person, a good expressive person, you also have to be a creative person and an expressive person. You know, it will reflect in your work, in your creativity. This is something that these schools also do very much. They encourage you by, you know, saying, oh, I feel good today, or I feel pretty bad today, or I like this movie, I don't like this movie, blah, blah, blah. That's a good thing. Now, this was only the part of the school. And of course, you don't learn everything in school. There's a whole lot of things that you cannot learn in school. But these 4 points that I've mentioned, they're important and they give you a very good starting point. The next part of this learning process is in the French companies. I will mention a few French companies that are definitely doing animation at the moment. The first one is Microsimage. Second one in the middle is MacGuff that I've just talked about before. Then we've got Buff Company, and this weird little red logo, this is Akama Studio. I'm sure none of you here ever heard these names before, but these guys are actually a major player in the French industry, and they have the French touch, I guarantee you that. They're doing fantastic work. But I'm talking a little bit about the French companies and how the students coming out of the schools will experience in the French facilities. Most of these facilities are small. They're small. Not a lot of people work in it. It's small facilities because it's complicated for us to have a creative industry, creative company, and you know, all together it's not easy to have a big studio. So you have a small studio. You don't have a lot of resources, and therefore you're coming in as a student with this big background. You have your head filled up with tons of creation throughout the whole world. You're ready. And right away, we're going to expect you to be doing a bit of everything. You're going to have to multitask. If you love animation, that's great. If you're very good at animation, it's great. But it's going to be expected from you to be able to do a little bit more than animation. You know, a little bit more like texture or drawing as well, or anything. You know, you're going to have to do a little bit more than what you are specialized in. You're going to be a generalist. We call this a generalist artist. And this is actually key, because you're going to learn so much through this process. Small facility, multitasking, okay, you're going to have to end up doing a whole shot, for example, by yourself. Now, if you're familiar with the animation industry, you know, everybody is working in the process of shot by shot, and you know, you build up the movie this way. In a French facility, it is absolutely common to give a young student coming straight out of school an entire shot, and he's going to have the whole responsibility of that shot. You know, it's going to work everything, the beginning all the way to the end, almost till the delivery to the client. This is going to teach you to be very good at criticizing yourself. You're going to have to be the judge of your own work, because there isn't so many people behind your shoulders to look at you. So you're going to have to pay attention a lot to your own details and judge yourself. That's very hard. Now, there's a little more to this. You're going to have to pay a lot of attention to the quality of what you're doing. Of course, you're going to have to be very creative. People are going to expect you to come up with ideas because, you know, there isn't so many people behind to do that work for you. You're going to have to, you're given a shot, nobody really knows how the shot is going to look like. You have to come up with an idea to make it look like something the client obviously would prefer to have. So you have to be intuitive, you have to be creative. These things are very important. Let me give you an example of the work I did when I was working in a French facility. I was working for Boeuf, and in what you're looking right there, I've done everything. I can claim full ownership of this, what you're looking there. Animation, texturing, lighting, rendering, compositing, set the sound. I can claim full ownership of this work. If you're a student and you're growing in this industry, this is wonderful. You are having great pride working on this thing. You become more passionate about your work. You want to do good. You want to do very, very good because you're not doing 10% of something. It's not like your work is going to disappear in the months. No, this is your work entirely, all the way. This is big. That definitely, I think, has a big impact on what we call today the French touch. So let me summarize for very quickly. French touch or French artist, what do they have that's so specific? They're a very independent, creative artist, that's obvious. They pay attention to all sorts of details. That's also obvious, I'm sure you understood it now. They are very good at problem solving. Because remember what I said? The tools do not matter. You are creative, that's important. The tools don't matter. And there are always ways around. There's always something that you can figure out to solve a problem. If you were raised into the idea that the tools is not constraining you, then trust me, the tools will never constrain you. Every time you face a problem, you'll be creative enough to work around that and bend the tools to your will. That's true. And this is actually very important. They're not afraid of responsibilities. You know, working on a whole shot by yourself, you're not afraid of responsibilities, and then you take initiative. You know, you undertake your own responsibilities into some key choice. That's a very good thing. They're very expressive, just like I said. They say what they think, a lot. And they're full of knowledge. Because boy, they have seen so much. In 2, 3, 4 years of education, and then working in the industry, these are bad habits that carries on. You continue to watch what's been done, what's doing, the new thing. You just fill up your head all the time with new stuff. And they always come up with new ideas eventually. Because they're full of ideas. Well, that's important. But there's another point that I think is essential. They always question themselves. Am I doing good enough? Am I doing the right thing? Was my idea good? Or am I sure my idea is unique? Am I sure nobody else did this before? This is a sickness in French artists. They always question themselves. It has nothing to do with confidence. It's not related to that. It's a typical sickness of a very creative person. They're never sure if it's good. They're questioning themselves. This is a good thing. Because you don't take anything for granted. You don't take yourself for granted. And you don't take your creativity for granted. So you constantly challenge yourself. If anybody who wants to do something new, think about it. Well, there's a good chance he's actually going to come up with something new. That I think is pretty important. what happens when you take these kind of artists and you put them into the world with those big houses like DreamWorks, Pixar, Blur Studio, Animation, Disney, Animal Logic, Platysimage. These are huge houses all over the world, and there are animation studios that are doing great work. And most of them sometimes earn Oscars and stuff. Well, I can tell you for sure, French artists are very, very appreciated. They're bringing a whole lot of money. The studio brings you resources, money, time, a lot of tools, more than you need sometimes. Well, the artist, the artist brings a whole lot of things. Like I said, they're taking initiative. But there's a lot more than this. Eventually, when you end up in one of these big studios, you're not considered a generalist artist anymore. There are so many people, everybody is specialized. Everybody is doing a little bit of something. But that's something that they're doing it very, very, very good. So, the French artist in there, well, it has something more. Because it understands the entire process of evolution. You've been a generalist and you've done actual shot and work, so you know the whole process. And that's a plus, trust me. When you know what's coming in, where you sit in the middle, and what you have to give for the next guy, you will be more efficient. You become someone that people find comfortable working. And that's actually very important. Next to that, they are still paying a lot of attention to detail, but that's a French thing. You're more raised into it. It brings a whole lot of perspective. And very often French artists, they're so much paying attention to detail, and they're so much vocal, they're not afraid in those big houses to just raise their voice and go out to the big guys and just say, you know what, I thought about something. How about we do this? How about we do that? They're not always right. Sometimes they're right. Sometimes they're wrong. But that's a great attitude. They're implicating themselves into the creative process of those big movies or big animation features, anything. This is highly, highly appreciated. I can guarantee you that. Sometimes it's actually too much. Sometimes the French students, the young French students, they're being told, okay, you know what, you gotta shut up right now because you're talking way too much. And there are other people who've been doing this since a long time. You still have a lot of things to learn. Just cool down. Okay, this is too much, but it's all right. It's better than zero. A little better than zero. All right, the last thing is that thing about not thinking about the tools, not caring about the tools, helps you think out of the box. And when you're working in the big studio, most of these studios want to be innovative. They always want to create something that's never been done before. Having people who think out of the box, who are not going to be constrained by what's been done before, they're going to always try and come up with a completely new approach. Most of the French artists are very good at this. They have the French touch. And therefore, I'm going to show you some example of French artists working in international studio. This guy named here is Raphael Lacoste, and he's a concept artist. You may have seen his work because he's been working very, very much with Ubisoft, the video game industry, and I think this is beautiful. This is beautiful work. Turns out that there's no one else who does that kind of work. He was the first one back then. He is definitely still the leader on this. That's my opinion. Many people try to copy that. Not everybody manages to do as good as he does. He's having an amazing quality of lighting, an amazing creativity. This is impeccable. Another guy that definitely is a major player now, and he's French, and he has a French touch all the way. It's Guillaume Aretos, and he works for DreamWorks. And they need that guy so much because he's the basically art director. And that's a big position. That's his work on Puss in Boots. He was the art director for the whole thing. That's a dream job for so many people. That's funny.